The Western elites are planning for a mass casualty event. They want you to die, all of you, as many of you as possible. And I'm going to tell you why. There's a global awakening going on right now. But have you ever asked yourself the question, why is there an awakening? Why is there something to awaken from? It is because for the longest time, in this current epoch at least, most of the people alive today have been living under an illusion, a spell that was cast on our parents and grandparents that made us think that we were free and that all was good and well with the world. We're all discovering that most of the things we learned about the world, how it is maintained and advanced, have been based on falsehoods, how it feels like we are missing a few generations, and that we all seem to have been born asleep into a web of lies, a matrix, so to speak, that by and large, for many decades, most of us remained unaware of. And that spell that we're all waking up from was cast after a mass casualty event. And now seems like a perfect time for a repeat of this mass casualty event. You see, after a mass casualty event, such as a war or a global pandemic, and civilization more or less lying in ruins, there is that perfect moment where everything is in flux, where the old systems have been decimated, resources are scarce, and public services and institutions are almost non-existent. That is the perfect time for new systems to be put in place. Systems that will be implemented at the point when most people, men and women of fighting age, all those who remember the old freedoms and dignities, real or imagined, are either maimed, dead, or in exile, and the desperation that has set in among masses of the people from privation has eliminated or eroded any spirit of resistance, leaving them with no choice to accept the new system being offered by the surviving elite. The wars of conquest, slavery, and colonization were that mass casualty event. And while most of our parents and grandparents were not born during that period, most of them were born into colonial rule after the old systems had been effectively eradicated. And that was the period of socialization into the current neo-colonial capitalist system that most of us were born into, that now controls most of the world. That is when the spell of white supremacy was cast and established, that despite the violent relationship our continents had had with the Europeans, were socialized into believing that they were benign now and posed against us no further harm, that humanity had arrived at its kumbaya moment, that past atrocities had been reconciled, and we all were now working together for the good and the progress of the species. And so, most of the people alive today were born directly into an established captivity, a theater and system of enslavement that is marked by the illusions of personal autonomy and physical freedoms. That is how, in just 2 or 3 generations, a bad actor is able to instill a collective amnesia, to tear down the ghastly mask of an exposed oppressive system, and to socialize whole masses of humans into a new ethos, into the smiling face of another more brutal and totalitarian system. You are living again in an oops moment. You are too awake. You are living in a now we have to do it again moment. And so the West will go to war with Iran and the nuclear powers of China, North Korea, and Russia, not because they think they can win and preserve their model of capitalism induced imperialism, but because they know that just like feudalism and slavery before them, the model has peaked and it is time now to usher in a new system of global control. They will go to war with the potential for extremely devastating effects on humanity because they would rather burn down the world and rule over the ashes rather than yield power or let their slaves go. Western elites are preparing for a global conflict they know will result in a mass casualty of the peoples of many nations. The Western elites want you to die in great numbers, and this is why. The jig is up. The trillion-dollar propaganda machine is compromised, and the veil that concealed the neocolonial system of the West that has been in place since the end of World War II is lifted. The awakening is happening, and it cannot be stopped. The rise of a great power has forced their hand, and they can no longer rely only on soft power to maintain hegemonic control over all the citizens of the world. And so they are going to have to act fast to usher in and implement new systems of control, one final and absolute, from which there will be no escape, and humanity may never again be freed. It is the one ring to rule them all, the one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all together, and in the darkness, bind them. Secondly, in spite of all their efforts, a great power has arisen in the East that has grown strong enough to challenge them and wrest power from their control, that is building alternative systems that will make it possible for all the oppressed nations to opt out of Western systems, systems that were once considered universal and ubiquitous. And apart from that, that great power is a non-white power, And they cannot have this because you must understand that there is also a deep racial and religious supremacy ethos that drives the carnage of Western imperialism. It is not separate from it. It is not merely justification for exploitation. It is integral to it. And that power will not submit willingly to any peoples or traditions that it has deemed inferior. Thirdly, the pyramid scheme of capitalism has peaked. Capitalism has reached its logical conclusion. It has enslaved the global population, subjugated governments, destroyed the planet in its rapid exploitation, and is at a point in time now where conversations about the redistribution of wealth have become inevitable, and a communist revolution is almost certainly imminent. Most of the world is conquered. Western corporations have their tentacles in almost every society on the planet, and all the peoples of the world are taxed almost to the point of revolution. Apart from the nuclear holdouts, there are few places left to exploit. Resources are running out, and the young generations of the global south have reached the age where they have begun demanding the use of their resources to improve their own living conditions. And finally, they are building AI systems that are demanding more and more of these resources. Mineral resources for the devices, power and water for the data centers. And so, rather than rethink and curb this devastatingly exploitative system and tax and, and redistribute wealth, they would rather enslave you in a techno-feudalist prison from which they can effectively ration out these resources to you, the cattle, the cogs in the machine, the slaves. AI is ready to the point of deployment, ready to the point of significantly challenging the idea of work and productivity, to the point of leaving a wasteland of destitution and planetary devastation, even as it reaps them unimaginable profits, ready to the point that governments will be forced to intervene to ward off the inevitable revolution that is bound to follow. They don't need to achieve AGI for any of this to happen. They just need it to be computationally adept enough to handle industrial processes, as well as to power the massive surveillance system that the New World Order is going to be built around. And so a mass casualty event is very much part of the plan because it helps them to achieve several things. First, it will reduce the competition for resources between humans and artificial intelligence systems and machines. AI needs resources, water, and energy. The US will need to almost double its energy production in the next 3 years to keep pace with its AI and data center energy demands. Secondly, it helps them to get rid of a large portion of the potentially excess masses of out of work people when AI is fully deployed. Thirdly, a large out of work population will be difficult to control, even with the AI enabled fascist militarization of state police systems. Thirdly, it reduces the number of people they will have to contend with who will eventually resist the implementation of the new systems. Fourthly, the human misery and suffering and abjection that follows a mass casualty event like a global war will create the perfect conditions for the implementation of a new world order. People will beg for their chains if it guarantees access to scarce resources. And lastly, the aftermath of a mass casualty event is a perfect ground for the re-education of society. The next generation will be born into the normalcy of a techno-feudalist dystopia, and once again, a collective amnesia will take root in all of the populations of the world. And absolute and total control is the only way to ward off that revolution, and that control is implemented easier after a mass casualty event like a global war. I want you to think about this scenario rather carefully. Currently, we are seeing the worst income inequalities where like 10 people own like the wealth of half of the world's population. We literally already have a trillionaire. They are already hoarding all of the wealth. Do you really believe that when AI is fully deployed and everyone is out of work globally, because Google and Elon Musk AI and robots will be deployed across borders internationally, do you really think that these same elites will put the global population on a UBI? They will put the dressmaker in Philippines, the coder in India, all the people that their AI systems have displaced globally. Do you really think that they are going to put all of the world's population on a UBI? Who will pay for the loss of income that is caused by AI? If you think the Western elites will put 6 billion people on UBI, then you are incredibly naive. And so they want to kill you, to reset the system, to eliminate an unruly population who will demand for pesky things like freedom and liberation. They want to create the scarcity and desperation needed for acceptance of these new systems, to instill a collective amnesia on the future populations who will be born and socialized into the tools of oppression, just like microchipping and digital currencies, carbon allowances, travel restrictions, mandatory vaccines, synthetic foods, and think that it is all normal. And most importantly, they want to reduce the competition for the resources that they will need to achieve this artificial general superintelligence fantasies. There's evil on this planet. There is a diabolical evil that pays no mind to human suffering, that regard you as cattle, pawns to be moved about and sacrificed at their pleasure. In the next few years, humanity is going to have to decide if this is a fate it accepts, and if we are truly, at the end of the day, no more than cattle. In their plans for this third world war, they know they cannot win without a pyrrhic cost. It's not only that they are willing to sacrifice their citizens as collateral in pursuit of the greater goal of global resubjugation, it is that they are counting on a mass casualty event that will lead to the kind of desirable victory that will allow for the global reset of civilizations, a new and final age of an absolute and eternal control of all the people on the planet.